I think about eco-friendly death care practices quite a bit, and a lot of times when I'm out in nature, I mean, I'm so grateful for our green spaces and natural space. It can help um, so much, not even with just with grief, but just in general, um, with staying calm and being less stressed and more present in our lives. Um, but being out in nature, hearing the bees and the birds and seeing the water and trees. There's so much that we try to do in our lives with our day to day to be eco friendly, and practice sustainability, whether it's, composting or recycling or being aware of where our products are made and how they're made. Thinking about maybe at the farmer's market, how was the produce grown? It might not be marked organic, but maybe it was grown without pesticides by a local family, and that can make a difference. But in terms of eco-friendly funeral practices, there's water cremation, which is really, really a cool process. It uses water and heat and pressure and a high pH or alkali material, um, potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide, that's often found in things even like our toothpaste. But it takes longer. It takes about 6 to 8 hours versus traditional flame cremation. Might take 2 to 4 hours depending on the person's size. But water cremation has a really low carbon footprint, virtually no emissions. At our facility, it's just so pretty. Just so grateful for the natural beauty that we have in California, just all around us. Um, but water cremation at our facility is powered by 100% renewable electricity. So it's one of the greenest options that you can choose. There's also human composting or natural organic reduction. Currently, it's not. Um, there aren't facilities in California, but there will be sometime after 2027. So Anubis is looking forward um, to be able to bring human composting into our um, eco-friendly uh, funeral and mortuary and crematory hub. But for the time being, we work with outside organizations in different states where the facilities are already permitted and legal. Then there's also um, lower emission flame cremation, which is what Anubis has. Our retorts were custom designed to emit about 50% of what other more traditional retorts emit. So that's a really good thing for air quality. Benefits of cremation. Most families choose cremation these days, well over 60%. And in California, especially Southern California, the numbers are higher. It doesn't take up land and it doesn't require embalming. There's no concrete used for burial plots, which also contributes to the carbon footprint of traditional funerals or burials. But for families who want that more traditional feel with the burial, There's things like green burials, which use a lot less materials and no embalming. You can even have a traditional funeral and burial without embalming, depending on the condition of your loved one. Um, Embalming fluid can leach into the environment, and like any chemical, I always like to think about the people who are actually working in the factories where they're produced and what, making sure they have good, healthy working conditions. So there's a lot of options depending on, your family's or your particular needs or what you're looking for. Yeah, this is just beautiful. And the cool thing about the eco-friendly is it does help protect our water resources, whether it be the San Francisco Bay, the Pacific Ocean, our local waterways within Southern California. It also protects our air and soil resources and, human health, habitat. It's kind of one final opportunity to, make a difference and leave the planet a little bit better and a little bit greener. And so many people, oh my gosh, when I tell people what I do, so many people, I thought this was a joke when the NFDA, National Funeral Directors Association, um, released a statistic about how many people want to be like made into a tree or put in a pot with a tree. It was a pretty high percent, and I feel like 70% of the people that I talk to say that, and of course there's different things that could be done with human composting. The soil can be added to trees and used for restoration with either traditional cremation or water cremation. The ashes or cremains can be, placed around a tree or something. But, most people want to just imagine themselves. I mean, we don't know what it's like after we're gone, right? But most people want to just imagine themselves with a peaceful, green resting place. There's also things like sea scatterings, which can be witnessed or unwitnessed. Or you could even take your loved one on a trip around the world or a trip around the state or the country and scatter their ashes in different places, which isn't specifically a green method, but it does give them a chance to have one final little adventure, and you can have meaningful ceremonies wherever you go. But most people tend to choose nature or natural spots. It's just so calming to us. Yeah, and when I reflect back, not so much to my other family members, um, because I just don't think I spent as much time looking at them in their casket. But when my dad died and he was embalmed, like it was, yeah, it looks quote unquote peaceful or whatever, I guess. But like at the time, I was young and I kind of coped with it by taking a lot of photos of him. I don't even know where the photos are, but like I had all of these photos of my dad in the casket, and I think it helped distance me a little bit from the emotions. It was too much right then at that time. And plus, I also had to speak about him a little bit. And so I wanted to maintain my composure, although I don't think I was thinking of it in those terms at the time. I was just doing the best that I could. But so many photos, and looking back at it, I kind of, I can picture, because of all those photos, I can picture exactly what he looked like in the casket, and he didn't look like himself. embalming is not required by law, and it's not even the best thing for the people doing the work of the embalming. But there are times when it makes sense because it does preserve the body, and depending on what type of funeral service or what condition they were in, it can make a difference between being able to view them or not. Well, that was loud. Um, yeah, so he looked fake. It didn't look like him. He looked His skin looked kind of plump, and it was artificial. And he was wearing a weird sweater too. I know he had worn the sweater before, and maybe he had to wear a sweater because um, my mom donated some skin, so they took skin grafts so that other people could use it, and so maybe that's why she had him in the sweater. I don't know. It was just really weird, the sweater he was wearing, and then the fakeness of the embalming. It made it all sort of surreal. And then getting behind the camera and taking photographs, it kept me from being right there and really connecting it with my dad. I was sad and I was grieving, but I don't think it really, I think I was sort of in shock at that point. And I don't know if I touched him or not. I don't think I did, but it doesn't feel that, when somebody's been embalmed, they don't feel the same as like touching your loved one in real life. It just looked really fake. And I think the not looking like him. And again, my other family members that passed when I was young were also embalmed and buried, but I just don't remember it to the extent. And it's weird, even though my dad was sick and he probably knew he was going to die, he was on a transplant list. Um, but I don't, or I don't know if he knew he was going to die, or, it's just a possibility when you're sick, but like we never talked about what he wanted. And maybe it's because, at that point, everybody in the family had been buried and we had traditional funeral services and plots at the cemetery. It's just kind of weird. But now, like, I talk to people, some of them know that they want green options. Some of them want to get a pre-need, which is always, can always be helpful for locking in to make sure your wishes are honored, and also just to take the burden off your family and, um, go ahead and have the financial part taken care of, where your family or friends or loved ones can just focus more on, I like to say, celebrating your life. Yeah, it's weird, like talking about my dad. It's so vivid. Again, I do think it makes a difference with like taking photos and how many photos I took. It probably locked it in my mind, but it's like it wasn't creepy, but it wasn't him. And once somebody's passed, their soul or spirit isn't really part of the body anymore. But like even the body wasn't him or didn't seem like him. Like his hair was too perfect and or groomed, and then just the weird texture and plumpness of the skin and stuff um, from the embalming. So I think in hindsight, I not only is it greener, but I would really prefer to see my loved one in more of their natural state, even if it's not perfect. Because I mean, it is part of life. Death is part of life. The cycle of life. I think they even say that in The Lion King. And it might be easier to, I don't know, maybe come to terms with things